One thing I hear from time to time from a new student is that I'm just so tired of being afraid of everything. And obviously, they're talking about a self defense circumstance, but it can apply to so many different things. Overcoming panic. Some people feel like when a self defense emergency happens, they just automatically panic. That's what they'll tell me. I just automatically panic. And I'll explain to them that, well, you don't really automatically panic. You learned how to panic, and you can unlearn how to panic. And you learned how to do it through a thinking process. And of course, they say, but I don't think about anything. The thing happens and I just panic. I don't think about anything. Because the fact is, you thought about it long ago, years ago. You got all these thoughts in your head about things, and you've already come to conclusions about them. And those conclusions aren't necessarily correct. So maybe you learn to panic by significant others in your life, or a parent or a teacher, or somebody who influenced you in some way. So let's take a simple example that probably everybody can relate to. A mouse runs across the floor. And they just panic. It's a mouse. I'm like, yeah, it's a mouse. And I suppose they could say something like, well, it could bite you and it could have disease. And believe me, the mouse doesn't want to bite you. But we can all see that that's a bit of an overreaction. But you learned it from somebody else. That's how they reacted when a mouse ran across the room, and you do the same thing, and you're up on a chair now because, and all the things that went into that you thought about at the time of how horrible and terrible it was, and all the conclusions you came to. And now when a mouse runs across the room, you just automatically panic. It's just automatic. It's just part of you. It's just who you are. No, it isn't. You learn to panic about that mouse, and you can learn to unpanic about the mouse. And it always cracks me up too that, here it is with a mouse, and I go into somebody's house and they got mice for pets. It's like, oh, you have mice in here. Like, yeah, here, check this one out. They take the mouse out of there. So we're interested in self-defense, aren't we? So, when a threatening situation happens, some people say, I just automatically freeze. It's just automatic. And I point out the same thing. Well, you learn to do that, and you can unlearn to do it. So obviously the thinking can't take place at the moment of the attack, this new thinking you're going to put into place. You got to start challenging some of the ideas that you hold about the situation. And at first it may be hard to find this. So Brad Steiner taught me so much about this, and he taught me Albert Ellis's method of the ABCs of thinking, and then there's a D and an E as well. But A is the activating event. Something happens. I'm going to go to the C. I'm going to skip the B. A is the activating event. In this case, it's the threat. Somebody threatens you. And C is the emotional consequence. I freeze. I can't do anything. It's just automatic. No, there was a B before that. A whole belief structure you have about the threat that says things like, there's nothing I could possibly do against an attacker. I hear this from women often. A woman could never defeat a man in an attack, and it doesn't make any sense to even try. It'll just make matters worse. And you forgot about all this nonsense that you never challenged before, and it's just automatically there because that belief structure is there. So the threat happens and the person freezes. So you first got to start to identify what are those beliefs. And they're not all that difficult to find once you find them. Then you've got to start actively disputing those beliefs. This doesn't happen overnight. So let me put it in terms of public speaking, because I do a lot of public speaking, and I had a job where it was way back in the 90s. Fax machines were new, and in Seattle I installed fax machines and repaired them, but I had to train these whole entire offices and had my suit on and everything. I would sweat bullets. I mean, just drenched down, dripping on the page. It was embarrassing as heck, and it was everything I could do to hold it together. And I remember we got this new manager, and Actually, that manager was from another business, but the story's still the same. Uh, he would sweat so bad, and he never even wipe it up. Every time I'd start to sweat, I'd like, get that bead of sweat. Oh my gosh, I'm sweating again. And he does me talking, his sweat running down his face. I was like, how does he know this? He doesn't even care that the sweat's running down his face. Doesn't even matter to him. And I started to realize, well, just bring a towel with you or something and mop the sweat off. But the activating event, I have to give a talk to all these people in this office. The consequence, I start to sweat like crazy. Well, the emotional, and then I panic. Oh my God, I look so horrible. Look at me, I'm sweating everywhere. This is, people think I'm stupid, or I can't imagine. There's the belief in there. I'm going to start disputing it, and the disputing might look like, okay, I'm sweating up here. It's not very convenient, but it's not deadly, and it's not going to hurt anybody, and I could just wipe the sweat up, and it'll be a little embarrassing, but now the event goes from being horrible and terrible and awful and to jump off a building to, oh geez, it's just inconvenient, it's embarrassing, and you go through that. Now I've replaced it with the better philosophy. I want to repeat, this doesn't happen overnight, but you got to start challenging the thinking, and we're talking about panic as it relates to self-defense. So when you're thinking about that, well, that's just who you are. I just automatically freeze up when anything like that happens. Well, you can learn to unfreeze and get over this and find those things in your past, these beliefs that are deeply embedded now. And a lot of times when people talk to me, it doesn't take me more than 5 minutes to find all the irrational beliefs I have about self-defense. Oh, they said this. Oh, we got to start challenging this and challenging that. So fear is a good thing. That's what you got to understand. When you're threatened, I don't care who it is, fear overcomes you. It's a shot of adrenaline, and here we go, and panic says something like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. This is horrible and terrible. I just can't handle it. And somebody who handles it properly that hits them. I thought this might happen one day. I know what to do. Oh, surely it's dangerous. I could get hurt, but there's nothing by definition that says it's horrible or awful. People have been through this and got through it, and I know what to do, and I'm going to act. You learn to panic, and you can learn to overcome panic.